Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that, Professor. Yes,
sorry.
Prof. Ambe will be sharing the screens from his side, so I will be coordinating the session.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vinolia. I'm the Marketing and Communication Coordinator for AISCR. I would like to welcome everyone and thank you so much for being patient with us. This is our 18th live session for Research Support Webinar Series 2021. Before we start, I would like to take you through some housekeeping rules. I'm going to request everyone to please mute themselves to avoid any background noise. And secondly, for those who have questions and comments, they can write in our chat box and then we'll go through them after the presentation. And again, for those who'd like to present their own questions, you'll be given the opportunity only after the session, the presentation, and we will give you the opportunity to present your own question. You can then raise your hand and then you'll get noticed. For everyone who's here, please switch off your video, switch off your camera and mute yourselves, please. Thank you. As for Prof. Arthur, please put on your video so that everyone can see you. You can just switch on your video so that everyone can see you. Thank you very much. Moving forward, I have with me my colleague who is Ms. Gineilwe, our business coordinator and project developer. She would like to say a few words before we continue with the session. Ms. Gineilwe, if you are ready, you can please take over.
Okay, thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity that you've given me just to give a brief presentation of AISCR's key services. Okay, just to introduce myself once again, my name is Gineilwe Moya, and I am the business coordinator and project developer for AISCR. We have realized that many attendees in our research support webinar series do not have a full perspective of the offerings that AISCR provides. And then just to give a brief description of our services. Okay, AISCR is a leading Pan-African nonprofit institute. We support public and private sector organizations, including our postgraduate students with research and contract research support. We provide capacity building for SCM professionals as well as technical support to students. Our research are conducted in the form of feasibility studies, case studies, surveys and analytics, and market analysis. We have also categorized all these research solutions into 5 categories, which is the supply chain intelligence, the supply chain barometer, the public procurement monitor, gap analysis, and feasibility studies. And then in terms of our capacity building solutions, we support individuals and organizations as follows, which are the technical support to postgraduate students, workshops for postgraduate students, and skills and capacity building workshops for SCM professionals. So colleagues, should you or your organization wish to work with AISCR, please contact me, Gineilwe Moya, at gineilwem@aiscr.org.za, or for more information, you may visit our website, which is www.aiscr.org.za. Thank you, colleagues. If you didn't get that, at the end of the presentation, I will repeat. So please stay tuned. Hope you enjoy our presentation. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gineilwe, for the wonderful presentation. I hope everyone now understands what AISCR do. Today, without any waste of time, today we have Prof. Arthur Ahimbisibwe, who holds a PhD in Supply Chain Management from Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand, Master of Science in Procurement and Supply Chain Management with a distinction, and a first-class degree in Procurement and Logistic Management, both degrees from Makerere University, Uganda. Prof. Ahimbisibwe also possesses professional qualifications, such as being a certified member of Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply from UK, as a fellow of Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, UK, as well as certified member of Project Management Institute, also UK, and as certified procurement professional Institute of Procurement Professional of Uganda, among other qualifications. He is a professor of supply chain management, a senior researcher, consultant, and an accomplished academician. Prof. Ahimbisibwe has over 15 years of working experience in universities, of which 6 years are in senior managerial positions. He has served in various managerial positions as a head of department, dean of School of Postgraduate Studies, deputy vice chancellor academics and researcher, and a vice chancellor from both Makerere University and University of Kigali, respectively. He has been passionately engaged in research and published extensively in over 80 top journals. Most of his research papers have been awarded the best papers in research. Prof. Arthur has supervised of over 300 postgraduate students in research. He has conducted and participated in several training workshops and consultancies in both private procurement and public procurement. Prof. Arthur, you are welcome to be with us here today. If you are ready, you can now take over, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. As you've heard, I think the host has done a grateful job. And my apologies for, of course, delaying in connecting. So my colleagues, as you've heard, my name, I'm Professor Ahimbisibwe. I'll be facilitating today's presentation on writing papers and articles from a thesis or dissertation. And I will straight go to the point in the interest of time. And most of you, of course, who have been conducting research or have gone through the research, you must have realized that turning or writing any journal article is something that usually consumes quite a lot of time, and it's a bit complicated process. And especially when you are beginning, when you are starting to learn how to write an article, journal article or research paper, it's more complicated. So the challenge usually is, how do I start, or where do we start from? And in most cases, when you are trying to extract journal articles from your dissertation or thesis, usually this may occurs when you have just completed your PhD thesis, or when you're about to and you want to convert it into a journal article, or when you are beginning up your academic career and you want to become a journal writer or a researcher, and you intend to use your dissertation as a starting point for writing a journal article. But whatever situation from the above, the first thing that you need to understand is that when you are converting a thesis into a journal, it is very important to first understand how the two differ. Usually when you look at the thesis and the journal article, a thesis is a simple academic document which is more detailed in content than a journal article. Usually journal articles are shorter and they tend to highlight key points in a more succinct format or manner. But to be more specific, so that some of our colleagues who might have more interest to understand the main difference between a thesis and a journal article, I've just put up just a simple table for comparative purposes. You can look at thesis characteristics and how it differs from a journal article. Usually a thesis, it's meant or intended to meet academic requirements or qualifications, whereas a journal article mainly focuses on meeting the journal standards, which are usually set by that specific journal. And when you're looking at the thesis, it is usually reviewed or examined by select committee members, whereas for the case of a journal article, usually it is reviewed by panel or blind copy reviewers who are usually appointed by the chief and his committee. So those are the key differences that you can contain chapters, journal articles, they contain. And in terms of word limits, you usually find that thesis, they have the word limits usually are not strict. Usually they give a range like 80,000 to 110,000, whereas word limits for journal articles, they are usually limited to a specific number, let's say 5,000 words. For this, usually use, whereas for a journal article, we usually focus on following the manuscript format. And when it comes to literature review, usually literature review for thesis is usually very lengthy, giving more details about literature, comparing what previous studies have done, and are trying to identify or pin down the gap. Whereas when it comes to journal articles, usually literature review is very limited, is very, very summarized, and it is straight to the point. For thesis, we usually seek for AISCR approvals, and they are usually described in detail. But when we are writing journal articles, we tend to just describe AISCR approvals that were acquired in 1 to 3 sentences, or sometimes for some studies it might not be necessary. But when it comes to thesis, all thesis must be approved. When it comes to presentation of findings, for thesis, all findings must be presented as they are as they have all been, of course, obtained from the study. Whereas for a journal article, we tend only to focus on selected findings and the ones that we present, so that we can be able to meet the required word limits, and also to be straight to the point. For the case of tenses or verbal tenses, for thesis, verbal tenses may vary accordingly, especially when you see like in chapter, when you see like in chapter 1, when you go into literature review, then when you go into findings, verbal tenses could vary. However, for journal articles, we tend to use continuous tense, and we tend to use it throughout, from the beginning up to the end. So those are some of the few differences which I felt I should share with you, because before you distinguish a thesis from a journal article, you need to understand those ones, and they should be back at your head. Now, of course, from there, now we can go specifically to the key steps that you need to follow when you are converting your thesis to a journal article. Although these stages are not all, but I'm very sure these are some of the key ones that if you follow them, they are likely to make you reach where you want to be. So as I have previously said, converting a thesis to a journal article is not simple. It's usually a very complex process. And it's something that you run over, of course, with time and from practice, not only from theory that you hear, but you must engage yourself, you must read papers, you must attempt to write. And usually the first, of course, articles that you write, you find that if you read through after like maybe 5 years, you realize that indeed here I was beginning to write. So writing is a skill which we must acquire with time, and which is obtained from practice. So the following steps must be observed, irrespective of whether someone is converting a thesis or a dissertation to a journal article. And these are the key ones. One, you need to identify the best journal for your work. I will come back to that and give more detail, but it's very, very important that before you start converting your thesis to a journal article, you need to understand which journal you are targeting. And then 2, you need to shorten the length of your thesis, because usually thesis and dissertations are usually large, huge documents. So you need to shorten it so that you can be able to fit in the format for the journal. And also 3, you need to reformat the introduction. Of course, you reconfigure it towards the journal requirements or what you are intending to present. And also sometimes you can construct or build an abstract from an introduction, which most people do. Then 4, you can also continue to modify the introduction so that it can fit, of course, into the beginning section of your article. You need also to work on the method section or methodology, where you have, of course, take people through the tools that you have used, the research design issues. You have to talk about, of course, the sampling. You talk about the population, etc. Depending on the type of research that you are conducting, whether quantitative or qualitative. And then you can also 6, you need to report main findings in the results. Only main findings, as I've earlier said. Then you are the target documents are very detailed and they might have many references. So when it comes to writing a journal article, you need to sit down and cut and reduce on the references that you have. So let's start by looking at 1 on how you can identify the best journal for your work. Some of those colleagues of us who might not understand what a journal is, because I'm talking too much about a journal article. Usually when we talk about a journal is usually a published magazine of an collection of academic pieces of documents, of which case we are talking about a collection of research articles, either or it is in the policy of the journal. So when we talk about, there are different journals that serve different disciplines, and you look at your discipline and then you can be able to narrow down and go at which journal fits within your discipline or within your profession. So how do you choose a journal for your paper? The first step you need to do, identify and list the available journals within your research field. Every research field has got its own research journals. Look at your field. If you are in procurement, look at the journals that are publishing articles or topics that are related to procurement. If you are in accounting, look at that area or field and be able to see which journals that are in that area. And usually identifying journals in a specific field, if you are beginning for the first time, it's always advisable you consult your advisors. They can always guide you. Or if you are not sure, you can even check on Google. You can check, even you are like the people whom you know are very good senior researchers, you can try to see which best journals that they are published in their work. But the challenge is that if you follow the best researchers in most cases and you are beginning, it might be very challenging for you for your work to be accepted in those top journals. So the best advice is to make sure that you take your time, you consult, you identify and list the available journals, and these journals should be the journals where your topic can be published. And then, of course, in those journals, you will see who is the target audience. When we talk about target audience, we mean the people who read the journal. They are the people who the journal targets. And in most cases, these journals they target either specialized audience or a specific area, and the most specialized audience, it is only special like for that area. Like if you talk about a journal for cancer patients, it would mean, for cancer research, it would mean that it's only targeting people for cancer. like, let's say talk about behavioral factors, talk about motivation, talk about, how people are behaving in accounting, etc. Some of these aspects you might find they cut across, and it's always good that if you are beginning, maybe you start with multidisciplinary, but also if your work is too specialized or too specific, like if you have written an article on environmental accounting, then it would be better that you make sure that your article fits or matches with the journal that you are going to select. And also it's important to look at the types of articles that the journal you are going to look for publishes. Some journals publish research papers, others publish theories, others publish case studies, and others publish book reviews. But there are also, of course, some journals where you find that they publish more than one, for example, case studies, book reviews, or etc. So you take interest and find out. And the other important factor is to look at the journal reputation. All journals are not the same in terms of reputation. And when we talk about reputation here, we mean the good image of the journal, the good reputation or the image of the people, the senior researchers who are publishing there can improve the profile journal because of the people who are publishing there. If they are senior researchers, if they are senior academicians, if they are senior practitioners, rather than these new journals which have just come into existence, of course, the reputation might vary. And it is very, very important that when you are looking at journal reputation, you look at, of course, there is what we call the journal impact factor, which of course assesses or measures the quality of the journal, and it's based on a number of it's important to look at also the impact factor, which is an important measurement, which looks at, of course, the quality of the journal, of the journal. It also measures the average citation of the journal, and even it looks at the people who are publishing in that journal. So it's a combination of variables which must be put into consideration when you are choosing a journal. And for the case of journal reputation or impact factor, there are different journal rankings. Journals are ranked, so there are many forums or international even rankings which show which is the best journal, which is the second. It can depend on the region where you come from. If it is Africa, you can look at African journal. If you're in Australia, you can look at Dean's List. If you are in the UK, if you're in America, you can look at American journals. So it depends on where you want to publish or where you are located. But usually the journals are ranked, and they are ranked based on a number of variables. And those variables are very, very important for anyone if you are going to publish your work. So that's how you can choose your journal. But for more details, of course, about impact factor and journal reputation, you can follow it up and read more, or we can have a further discussion on that if you are interested in knowing more. And then two is shortening the length of your thesis, because usually a thesis, as we have said, aims at serving a different purpose, and usually is a very huge document. You need to actually accept that a thesis is different from a journal article, and you treat it as a separate piece of work when you are coming up with a journal article. So you have to bear it at the back of your mind that the purpose of these two documents is different, and then you treat the two as separate pieces of work. Then be able to summarize your ideas so that you are very concise and precise, but also not ignoring the content. And make sure that when you are trying to write up, try to paraphrase, use other phrases, but also make sure that you do not lose meaning, or you don't distort meaning. And then also it's very, very important that you select and repurpose parts of your thesis accordingly, because we have said that when you are writing a journal article, you need to follow the journal format, you need to follow the standards of the journal. So you need to select and you need to reconfigure your parts of the thesis to be able to conform to the requirements of the journal article. And then you need to reformat the introduction as an abstract. This one, in most cases, people start from there, from the introduction to create an abstract, because usually an introduction is where you can be able to pick usually the purpose of the study, you pick, you know, the research objectives, you pick the statement of the problem and the background of the study. So in most cases from here, most people tend to develop from here, because usually introduction can give you a brief summary of what the whole study is. And then usually if you can write this one in between 100 to 150 words, and then you can be able, of course, to generate an abstract from there. And then you can be able to add on other parts that are missing, of course, which might include findings, etc., that you might, of course, come up with. And then also part B, you need to use the introduction and discussion as basis for the abstract. Of course, like as I've said, you connect the introduction, you generate an abstract, and then you try to connect it with the discussion and then the findings, so that you can make one document. Modifying the introduction is also very, very important, building on what I've said. If your thesis, of course, has got more than one research question or many hypotheses, in most cases, if you are going to publish a journal article, you want to write out the journal article, it's better to decide which research questions you are going to focus on. In some cases, if your research has many research questions, you can decide to focus on one research question, and then you have one journal article just only focused on one research question. Or sometimes you can combine two, or sometimes you can combine three. From my experience, like me, my research, I usually have more than two research questions, and usually I tend to, like from my dissertation, both master's and PhD, I've been able to write different papers using different research question or a research objective, whatever I would call it. And I would focus on each. For example, if I have research question one, then I focus on that research question to write one research article, and then I complete it as a one complete whole. Then I pick on another research question also, I develop it. Of course, usually these research questions are matched with hypothesis testing. That is if you are doing quantitative research. So you make sure that the two go hand in hand, and you have to make a decision. What are you going to include in this paper? Because like me, what I've always done is that I've written different research articles at different levels of my research. When I'm, for example, if I have started research and I've reached at a level, of course, of like literature review, I write a conceptual paper at that point. That's what I've been doing for my research. So then the other research question maybe which focuses on the findings, etc. That one comes in after I've collected data and after you have tested the research model, and then I've the findings, I present them in a different paper. So I have been developing my research in a sequential manner. I develop papers sequentially with time. As I write a dissertation, when I reach at a point A, research question one ends here. I construct a paper, I write a paper, or I write a journal article there, and then I can be able to submit it as a standalone journal article. And in most cases, what I need also to share with is that where I have developed a journal article, for example, have it published on one research question, I also go ahead to develop a research question on in a journal article too, and then I make sure I end those papers in the same journal, because usually when you are developing work sequentially, the same reviewers can be helpful to review the papers, to accept the papers, or understand your work. It becomes very difficult if you are developing a research article and you are breaking down your dissertation or thesis into different articles, and then you send it to different journals. The review process can be complex because people might not understand your work. They might not understand where the previous paper stopped and where the new one is beginning. So like most of my papers, I tend to identify one research journal, and then I divide my research questions, our hypothesis, and then I say this part, I'm going to publish it up to this point. Then the next paper will be here, and then the third paper will be here, etc., etc. So it is very, very important to modify your introduction to make sure that you suit in the interest of the journal and how you want to write your article. Because if you don't divide up your dissertation, it means that you might end up writing only one paper, yet you can even get as many papers as 5 papers from one single dissertation. So it's very, very important for you to first sit down, even modifying the introduction, you determine what you're going to include in Article 1, what you're going to include in Article 2, what you're going to include in Article 3, etc. And also when you are modifying your introduction, make sure that you include some of the papers that have been published in that journal where you are targeting, because most cases, these journals, if you are targeting it, it is of good quality, and some of those papers have already been reviewed there and they have already been accepted. So there is some level of acceptance and the level of standard is high. So there is a high likelihood of acceptability of your articles because you are targeting the same journal. And then the other point is about tightening the methods or methodology, or what you would call the chapter which focuses on how your research was conducted. So usually when you're writing a dissertation, your research methodology is very huge. You talk about, of course, you talk about many things. You talk about research design. If you are doing quantitative research, you talk about population, you talk about sampling, you talk about things like, you know, the response rate, you talk about a lot of things that you have actually gone through in terms of approaching your research questions. But now you have to decide, you have to choose a few things which you feel are very relevant and they are not needed in too much detail for readers or the audience you are targeting. So you cut down your research approach and then you make it short so that it can suit the interest of the audience or readers. And also, again, you need to refer to some of the previously published papers in the same journal, and then you can use them as an example to build on the research, because journals also want to build their kind of progression. They want to build their kind of audience. They want to build their consistency. So if there are papers that have been previously published there, you are always advisable to read there and see what can relate to your work, what you can build on. As you are aware, research builds on one another, and that's when we can add value. And then another important point is about reporting main findings in the result. When you are presenting your findings in a journal article, and like in a dissertation, a thesis, you have to summarize really your statements. You make sure you only include the main findings, the findings which are answering your research questions, the findings which are answering your research objectives, the findings which are only giving you what you went to look for. These are extra findings that might not be, that you had not planned to find out, like other unexpected findings. Usually, we don't usually include them in main findings. We don't usually even tend to bring them in, because of course it becomes very challenging when you say you have gone out to do research to address these research objectives, and then you come up with answers answering different research objectives. So we usually tend to present our main findings in the results section and in a more concise statements, leaving out anything that we did not set out to achieve or anything that is not relevant. So you try to answer your question, you try to go back to your research objectives. What are the findings on each? What are the findings for each specific research finding that you went out to investigate? And of course, and the other point is about the discussion of findings. Of course, when you are discussing findings from your journal article, it is very, very important that you start by providing the interpretation of your results. What is it that is new from your research? Of course, vis-a-vis what is it that you are running from previous studies. You connect. Of course, you have to link up to your statement of the problem, the purpose of the study, what did you go to do, what have you found out, how does it make sense, what previous studies support your findings, what did you find that your previous research has supported and maybe your research does not support, and what do we really learn from all this? So it is very, very important that when you are presenting your findings, I mean your discussions, or when you are discussing your results, make sure to show what is new that is you are adding on the existing studies or previous studies, because research, and that's when it makes sense. And it's also advisable not to repeat your results in the discussion section, because when you discuss, I mean, when you keep on repeating results in the discussion section, it becomes monotonous and repetitive. So usually the discussion section, we leave it for discussion of findings and all results, and then we focus on that. And we try to situate or to contextualize the findings in the literature review, in the existing literature, which I've just said before. And also you show, of course, I've mentioned it, you expand on the known or previous perspectives. What is it that your findings support? Or what is it that your findings do not support? And also, what did you read for future studies? And should studies start from? What is it that your research has addressed and it has not addressed? And I always tell my students that this is the point at which you can say the truth when it comes to talking about limitations. If there is any, if there are any challenges, if there are any things that you know your research has failed to address, if you know there are things yourself you have not handled, please, this is the time when you can say the truth. You don't have to hide. No one can punish you because you have stated the limitations of the study. Usually, this is the point where every researcher says the truth about his research, because your limitations of your study or research are usually the beginning of future research. When we are starting to write research, you always want to know what previous authors have addressed and what has not been addressed in the literature, so that we can be able to start from there. But also when you present these limitations, please try to show to what extent you try to address them, because some limitations, of course, can be within the control of the researcher, whereas some are beyond the factors within his control. So it is best to state or indicate to what extent you have addressed these, and also point out the areas of weakness that you've not been able to address, so that future researchers can start from there. So the last slide is about limiting the number of references. I remember well from the beginning, I mentioned that user references for dissertation or thesis are usually very many. And when you are going to write a journal article, because there is a restriction on the word limit, so it's advisable that you sit down and reduce your references. Excuse me. You reduce your references and always use most of those, update your references, read new more articles, get some examples from the journal where you want to publish your work, so that you can include some of these articles, research articles in your new article that you are writing. And then you can be able to get more acceptability from the journal in which you want to submit your work. So when it comes to references, of course, some dissertations or thesis can even have 5 pages of references. But of course, when you are writing a journal article, you have to scale down and you have to update them and make sure that they are few. So choose only the most and those ones which have to has own reference. Depends on the policy of the journal, and have to, of course, you have to comply. Your work cannot be accepted. So the point here is that you have to format your references according to the journal in which you are writing to. And if you have written an article, of course, you want to submit it into a certain journal, and then it's not accepted, and then you are attempting to submit it in another journal, it means that you have to go. If your reference format for the university or academic institution where you've done your research is different from where the research, the journal where you're going to submit it, you have to reconfigure, you have to change them, you have to make sure that you conform to the format of the journal in which you want to submit your work. And of course, these days people have developed technology. They use reference management systems, e.g. Mandela or etc., depending on which one you are familiar with, and they can help you to do that, to reformat all your references correctly so that they can be accepted in that journal. I've just extracted some of the few research articles which I published from my previous thesis, and they are all, of course, here is just show you how this process is, because this process of writing research article process, and someone needs to see, because it is practical in a way that it requires skills in writing, etc. So as you can see, like the first 2 papers on my left, those are they are from my PhD dissertation, and the first paper, of course, most of these papers, as you see them, they are published in Emerald journals, and most of the Emerald journals, about 98% of them are in top journals. So they are good journals. The other journals, of course, like Journal of African Business, etc., are also equally good journals. But the point here I want to show you, I want to mention, is that the first paper on my right was a conceptual paper addressing one research question of my PhD dissertation. And then the second paper, of course, on the left, also addresses the second research question. And this is what I was saying, when you are going to extract papers, you need to know where this one will stop, where this one will not stop. And then the rest of the other papers, of course, came from my master's thesis, and of course, they had different research objectives, but I had to come out clearly to know where is this one going to stop, how far is this one is going to end, and then be able to write and publish these articles. So members, with that brief presentation, I thank you for your time, and I really appreciate. Thank you very much for listening to me. We can now have a brief discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that wonderful presentation. Without any waste of time, we're going to take some questions from the chat box. There are a few questions from the chat box with regards to the presentation. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm still locating the first question. Okay, the first question is from Jason, which says, can an article be published in different journals?
No, it's not acceptable to publish one article in many journals. Every article must be published in only one journal.
Okay, I believe that the person has been answered. The second question is from Ida Khan, which says, how do I publish the different objectives of the thesis proposal, yet data has not been collected?
Yeah, there are different types of research articles that you can write. Not all research articles must contain findings of data collected. You can have findings from your literature review, and those are called conceptual papers. You can write a conceptual paper up to literature. Once you have analyzed or reviewed your literature review, there are new things you need to have picked from your literature review, and you can present those ones and discuss them and publish a paper.
Thank you so much for that answer. I believe that it has also been answered. Another question is from Protas, which says, okay, he's saying, thank you for clarifying that one can use one or two objectives for publishing. The question says, can one submit the same article to different journals? I think it's the same as that first one.
It's not AISCR even accepted to submit one article in many journals, because there are ethics that guide researchers. It's like you are trying to cheat yourself. You first submit in one journal. If they don't accept your work, then you try another one. That is why I'm saying that research is a complex process. It takes a very long time. Sometimes you can take up to 3 or 4 years to publish one research article, because those delays could be brought about you submitting in one journal. Maybe you wait for feedback. Some of them could delay, but it's not acceptable for you to submit your work in more than one research journal.
Okay, thank you for that. The next one, it says, okay, thanks for explaining the importance of journals of reputation. Do we have a list or link of these journals of reputation? And can you share with us the links, if there are any links? Prof. Arthur.
Okay, but I've also seen someone asking about something to do with paying journal fee. I've seen, of course, I needed to. There are journals that are charging people to pay money, and me, it's not a good practice. There are journals which have started, which are charging people money, and they publish any research that you submit. And they are called predator journals. Those predator journals must be completely discouraged, because there is no quality. You see, we are looking for quality. Some of the articles, when you read through them, they are incomplete. They do not even add value, but they are published. So my advice to young academicians is to make sure that they don't pay fees. However, I've also seen some journals where people pay fees, but your work must be subjected to very rigorous review. So maybe if you feel you want to pay fees, make sure you pay fees to where your journal article will be reviewed and they are ranked highly, rather than just these journals where people have created them to create money. It's really very unfortunate.
Prof. Arthur, are you still there? Sorry about that.
Maybe I can just come there while Prof. Atto comes back. I mean, he was trying to explain that you do not just look at journals. In many institutions, they do publish lists of reputable journals. Take, for example, at UNISA, we are given a list from the Department of Higher Education and Training that we need to make sure. So even within that list, you need to be able to take responsibility to make sure that you publish your article in a reputable journal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Ambe. I don't see Prof. Arthur on the participant list, so I'm not sure if he's having troubles with his network or what. So I'm not sure. Should I continue with the questions? And Prof. Ambe will assist with that. Prof. Ambe, should I continue?
Yes, please continue.
Oh, okay. The next question says, is it acceptable to have a different article completely separate from your thesis for academic purposes if publishing to qualify for a degree award?
Yeah, I'm not for a degree award. I don't think so. It depends on the status of the university. I mean, different universities, they have different requirements. I remember, for example, there are some universities that they admit you for probably your PhD based on article publication. But still within that, you need to be able to develop a proposal and stipulate objective and the articles that you want to be able to write. For example, it may require that you have 4 articles that are interlinked. So instead of you producing a comprehensive and following the traditional research processes, you would be required to develop a conceptual research proposal indicating a clearly objective that you want to achieve, which should have been aligned to the different articles that you want to achieve in that. And upon you carrying out the study, you would be able to consolidate all of those articles and put them so that we can be able to see the synergy and alignment in terms of the objective that you want. But if you would be able to publish something out and then put it within the article, wouldn't have fit in terms of the scope of the work that you would have compiled at the end of the day for the award of your certification.
Thank you so much, Prof. for that. Yes, I see the next question. I think Prof. Ahimbisibwe has already touched on this one, even though the question was not asked yet. So I would like to hear what you say about this one, your own perspective. It says some journals charge a fee. So what is the average acceptable fee to pay for a journal?
And I see Prof. Micheline Nodia is here, and I want to call on the professors that are on board that we can be able to come in, switch your mic, and then come in to probably give your experience. I think the amount is difficult to prescribe a certain amount that is required. The bottom line for me is to look at the profile of the journal and make sure that you take responsibility that you are publishing in a reputable journal. Professor Micheline Nodia. If she's not on board, Vinolia, you can proceed.
Oh, okay, thank you. The next question says, may you kindly recommend journals for novice writers?
So it still comes back to what Prof. Atto was saying, that you need to look at the reputation of the journals and also look at those that are within your discipline or your area of specialty, and to be able to make sure that you align yourself with reputable scholars. They are journals of high impact factor. We always recommend, I mean, when you're starting and you remember it says research is a gradual process. It's a process of dedication, commitment, and patience. So when you're starting the list, I mean, just to give name here right now may not be able to help because we're coming from different contexts and background. But what you may do through us and through Prof. Ato Vinolia is to be able to get the various link of different journals that are aligned with supply chain management, and we can be able to send to the attendees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Moving forward, the next question says, please, what is the minimum and maximum number of pages an article should be made of?
You have different articles. In different articles, they have different requirements. Quantitative paper, so generally you expect an article to be about 5,000 words. And standard articles, they range between 5,000 to 7,500 words. But you may also have some journals that are more prescriptive and conceptual that will expect you to and give you room for up to 10,000 words. So in that particular question, I would request that we look at the requirement from each journal.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this one was asking if Prof can share the list of reputable journals. So we will ask Prof to share with us, and then you can just email us and we'll get back to you with feedback with regard to that. Okay, sorry about that. I don't think we do have any more questions in our chat box.
There is a comment which says, last time I attended Dr. Rivikan program and I promised a certificate will be awarded. To all our attendees, the certificate of attendance will be issued to everyone that have attended our session from the beginning of the year and up to date. So we did not, and we're not issuing certificate for every session. So we're going to consolidate and provide a certificate of attendance to you all and before we go on holiday. Probably Vinolia would dwell on that much. Thank you.
Yes, while we're still on that, I'm going to send a link with a form, which I'm going to request everyone to please fill in the form for feedback purposes, because we want to issue the attendees certificate for people who were entirely dedicated to the program. We're going to issue certificates as Prof has already said. So I'm going to send everyone a link with a form. So please make sure you do fill in the form and send it back to me. Now going to move forward. Ms. Kinelwe, if you are here, can you please, for the last time, clarify on what you said earlier with regard to AISCR and its profiling and everything? If you are there, you can take over.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vinolia. Good afternoon, colleagues, once again. I'll just give a brief presentation of the AISCR's key services because we have realized that many of our research support webinar series attendees do not really understand the full perspective of the offerings and services that AISCR provides. So as we know that AISCR is a leading Pan-African non-profit research institute where we support public and private sector organizations, including postgraduate students with research and contract research support, capacity building for SCM professionals, as well as technical support to students. Our research is conducted in the form of feasibility studies, case studies, surveys and analytics, market analysis, and we have also categorized our research solutions into 5 categories, which is the supply chain intelligence, supply chain barometer, public procurement monitor, gap analysis, and feasibility studies. So colleagues, in terms of our capacity building solutions, we support individuals and organizations as follows, which are the technical support to postgraduate students, workshops for postgraduate students, and skills and capacity building workshops for SCM professionals. Colleagues, in terms of if you or your organization would wish to work with AISCR, please contact me, Ginelo Moya, at ginelo.m@aiscr.org.za, or for more information, you may visit our site to get more information on AISCR services. Please visit our website on www.aiscr.org.za. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Program Director. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ginelwe. Without any waste of time, we have now reached the conclusion of our session. Before we go, I would like to urge everyone to please follow our social media platforms for more information with regard to the sessions that we are having frequently. So I would like to tell everyone that on the 25th of November, we are having the last session of a research support webinar series for 2021. The last session for this year is going to be on the 25th of November. So please follow us on our social media platforms for more information with regard to the speaker and the topic as well. And again, we do have a SCM Game Changer series, which will be held on the 23rd of November. It's also the last SCM Game Changer for this year. So you don't want to miss out. Make sure that you are there, avail yourself as much as you can so that you don't miss out. And also, if you want more information about it, please make sure that you visit our social media platforms. We are African Institute for Supply Chain Research on our social media platforms. That is where we make updates on our events or our sessions and who are our guest speakers. So we do publish that information on our social media platforms. I would like to thank everyone for being here today. I hope this session was helpful, was very literative and informative. So I would see you again on the 23rd for SCM Game Changer and the 25th for our last RSWS session. Thank you so much and have a lovely day further. Bye.
Bye.